The film starts by showing an old priest flying towards the rocky mountains above the sky, where the gods of the sky are buried. The old priest, who is a guardian of the god's tomb, had come to this place because one of the gods would be resurrected that day. That god was one of the gods who had died in the heavenly war between the gods and the demons of hell. Not long after, a young man named Kanan, the celestial god's reincarnation, rose from the ground. He looked confused and didn't know who he really was, because all the memories of every god reincarnation into a human has been erased. The old man guarding the tomb then attacked Kanan and said that over time he would slowly come back to remember what his true identity was. After that, the old man guarding the tomb kicked him, throwing him from the sky and falling into the earth. Kanan fell into a river where a princess named Zuyu was bathing and cleaning her hair. Princess Zuyu looked surprised to him, who appeared out of nowhere. Princess Zuyu looked surprised to see him, who appeared out of nowhere. She immediately shouted for help from the guards. She then ordered the guards to arrest Kanan and bring him to the kingdom to be thrown in a dungeon. On the other hand, a young man who was a prisoner of the royal prison seemed to be being treated by a prison guard girl named Nalan Rushui. The young man named Zilong was annoyed that he had just been beaten by another inmate in the dungeon cell. While Nalan was busy treating Zilong's leg wound, the other prisoners seemed to be giving each other the codes to start carrying out their plans. It turned out that the prisoners had intended to escape from the royal dungeon that day because they assumed that they had been held unjustly. The kingdom's prime minister, Shima, captured all of them and kept them in prison because they had spiritual powers in their bodies. After confirming that the situation was safe, the prisoner began to take the weapons they had hidden behind the straw and attack the prison guards. Nalan and Zilong decided to leave before the prisoners found them and attacked them all. They escaped through a secret passage where all the walls are plastered with spell paper. But when Zilong touched the spell paper, his hand suddenly reacted and emitted magic power. It turned out that the spell paper was magically created by a royal advisor named Swanzu to absorb magic power from other people. Fortunately, Nalan immediately pulled Zilong from the place and led him to run another road, which made them have to face the prisoners who were rebelling. The prisoners immediately surround Nalan and intend to kill her, so the fight between them could not be avoided anymore. Nalan tries to fight against the prisoners alone while protecting her maid, but she fails to protect the servant girl and is almost killed by the prisoners. Luckily, Shima came to that place and saved Nalan from the attacks of the rebellious prisoners. After he sucked the spiritual powers from the prisoners, he immediately attacked the remaining prisoners until they all lay helpless. Finally, the situation was conducive and the prisoners were again taken to their respective detention cells, including Zilong. Back to Kanan, who was brought by the guards to the kingdom, and Princess Zuyu. On the way to the royal palace, her bodyguard was suddenly attacked by a group of masked bandits who intend to seize the golden bow that she had brought. Kanan then took the initiative to fight against the bandits and protect Princess Zuyu, who had been captured by one of the bandits. Even though his hands were still bound by chains, he was able to beat the bandits with his kick. After Kanan managed to untie the chains in his hands, he attacked the bandits with a golden bow that miraculously reacted with his spiritual power. After successfully repelling the bandits, Kanan suddenly fell unconscious because he was still not used to the immense power in the golden arc from the heavenly world. In the evening, when Princess Zuyu and her bodyguard arrived at the palace with Kanan, Nalan came over to Princess Zuyu and greeted her. Soon afterward, Nalan asked what made Princess Zuyu go so long from the royal palace and travel such a long distance. She replied that she had to take the golden bow passed down by the sky god to treat the king, who was currently seriously ill. At the same time, Kanan, who had woken up, seemed to recognize Nalan's face and called her Yuxin, his lover's name, when he was still in the sky palace. Apparently, Nalan had the exact same face as Yuxin, who had disappeared 10,000 years ago when Kanan was still serving one of the war gods in the sky palace. While Princess Zuyu was chatting with Nalan, Kanan suddenly disappeared from the palanquin and moved to the room where the golden bow was kept. After Princess Zuyu realized that Kanan had disappeared, she immediately ordered the guards to find him and transferred him to the dungeon. On the other hand, Kanan was still trying to escape the mysterious energy on the golden arc because it was constantly pulling and forcing him to hold onto it. At the same time, a strange reaction occurred to the king every time Kanan touched the golden bow. The king automatically recovered from his illness when Kanan held the golden bow, but the king fell ill again when he let go of the golden bow. Then when Princess Zuyu took the golden bow so that her father could touch it, the golden bow suddenly floated up and returned to Kanan, who was hiding. When he realized that the golden bow had ties to Kanan, the king ordered the guards to take him to the medical department. On the other hand, Prime Minister Shima received a report from his son, Linshai, that he had failed to steal the golden bow from Princess Zuyu. It turned out that the bandits who had previously attacked Princess Zuyu were Prime Minister Shima's accomplices, who had been ordered to snatch the golden bow from her. Although Lin Chang failed to carry out the mission to find the golden bow, he got important information where he had found a young man who had very high spiritual strength. Lin Chang even saw the young man could master the power of the divine golden bow and use that bow as his weapon against the bandits. Hearing this, Prime Minister Shima seemed pleased that he can intend to see spiritual power from the young man and use that power so he could stage a coup d'etat against the king. Meanwhile, unconscious in the medical room, Kanan suddenly dreamt about his past while he was still a war god. In the dream, he found himself fighting with the golden bow in a battle. That means, from the beginning, the golden bow was indeed his weapon, and answered the riddle of why he could use the golden bow. That night, after Kanan woke up, he approached Nalan to ask if she was Yuxin, his lover who had left the heavenly palace for a long time. But she reiterated to him that she was not the girl he was looking for. In the middle of their conversation, Lin Chang suddenly came to her place, so she immediately ordered Kanan to hide in a room. This was because Nalan had been betrothed by the Prime Minister to marry Lin Chang, and if he knew Kianan's whereabouts at her place, he would be in danger. The truth is, she never loved Lin Chang, but she was forced to agree to matchmaking to respect the orders of the Prime Minister. After Lin Chang left Nalan's place, Kanan approached her and informed her that Lin Chang was the one who had attacked Princess Zuyu on the way to her palace on the other day. He believed that because of the shoes and the voice of the assailant were exactly the same as Lin Chang's shoes and voice. A few days later, a group of masked assassins suddenly appeared in the emperor's palace and intended to attack the king. Fortunately, Prime Minister Shima could easily defeat the assassins, so the king was saved. Prime Minister Shima then asked about the young man's whereabouts, who had high spiritual power over the king. Still, the king, who had a bad feeling about his intentions, decided not to tell him anything. Princess Zuyu also tried to hide Kianan's whereabouts by saying that he had been captured and executed by the royal guards. In the evening, Prime Minister Shima summoned Nalan to his place to inquire about Kianan's whereabouts. However, she also pretended she didn't know anything and withheld information about his whereabouts. On that occasion, Prime Minister Shima told Nalan to prepare for her wedding with Lin Chang, which would take place in few days. Hearing this, she seemed to object because she didn't want to marry Lin Chang, but she didn't dare to refuse his order. On the other hand, Princess Zuyu secretly captured Kanan and hid him in the dungeon. Fortunately, he managed to break free from the chains and immediately took her hostage. The prison guards reported the incident to Prime Minister Shima so that he finally found out where Kanan was. Prime Minister Shima then ordered the prison guards to put Kanan in a holding cell so he could not escape again. Inside the holding cell, he met Zilong, who claimed to be the reincarnation of a dragon god from the heavenly palace. Zilong knew that Kanan was a god because he had been in the army under Kanan. A few days later, when Nalan and Lin Chang's wedding day arrived, she couldn't stop thinking about Kianan's safety. Therefore, she decided to secretly release Kanan and Zilong without Prime Minister Shima knowing so that they could escape. After successfully escaping from the royal prison, Kanan was astonished by Nalan's strange-looking attitude. Zilong told him that today was her wedding day with Lin Chang. Hearing that, he ran to meet her. After arriving at the royal palace, Kanan immediately created a commotion to stop the marriage between Nalan and Lin Chang. Lin Chang, who did not accept his actions, attacked him, causing a fight between them. After a fairly fierce fight, Lin Chang was killed, so the marriage was cancelled. The next day, Nalan showed Kanan a secret book that had been hidden by Prime Minister Shima. In the secret book, it was written that he was planning to gather as much spiritual power as possible to evolve into an immortal being. That was also why he had often arrested people with spiritual powers and imprisoned them in dungeons. On the other hand, Prime Minister Shima came to see the royal advisor, teacher Suanshu, to ask for help so that Lin Chang could be resurrected from the dead. It turned out that during the time, he learned much about spiritual power from Suanshu and ordered Prime Minister Shima to gather spiritual power from other people. After hearing Prime Minister Shima's plea, Suanshu killed him instead of helping him by absorbing all the spiritual power from him to his body. Not long after, Kanan, Nalan and Zilong also came to Suanshu's palace because they had learned of his evil plan. He intends to take all the spiritual powers of all kingdom members during the blessing ceremony, which will be held in a few days. Kanan knew that Suanshu had deliberately done all that so he could become a god and live eternally in this world. However, Kanan, Nalan and Zilong would not allow that, so they immediately fought against him. Unfortunately, Suanshu could easily defeat the three of them with his spiritual power over the years. In the evening, Xuanzhu went to meet the king and asked him to hold a blessing ceremony with the entire royal family. The king, who knew nothing about his evil plan, immediately agreed to it. This could happen because Xuanzhu had previously lied to the king that the blessing ceremony would cure his illness. The next day, Princess Zuyu and other royal members gathered in the open hall to carry out the blessing ceremony. When all the royal members were ready, Xuanzhu immediately carried out his plan by absorbing all their spiritual power. However, the execution was thwarted by Kanan and Zilong, who had recovered from being defeated by Xuanzhu. Zilong transforms into a giant dragon and helps Kanan defeat him. Not only that, but Kanan had also succeeded in obtaining his divine power from the golden bow he had summoned and immediately used the golden bow as a weapon to defeat Xuanzhu. After killing Xuanzhu successfully, all kingdom members including the king and Princess Zuyu rose again and regained their spiritual power. At last, Kanan's mission to find his true self and strength has been accomplished. The film concludes here.